The secret connection between quantum physics and Buddhism. Buddhism and quantum physics explain. Imagine a quiet evening, a calm breeze brushing your face, and an elderly person sitting in a rocking chair, staring up at the vast, unchanging sky. For a moment, there is a fleeting thought. What am I really? Is the universe, in all its immense scale, simply a collection of objects, or is there something more profound lying beneath the surface of everyday perception? These questions aren't just musings of an old man on his porch, but are central to one of the greatest explorations in human history, the search for the true nature of reality. What if everything we see, feel, and experience isn't exactly what it seems? This is a question that has occupied human minds for millennia, and one that both ancient Buddhist wisdom and modern science, particularly quantum physics, have tried to unravel from their own perspectives. The purpose of this book is not just to discuss the theoretical frameworks of both Buddhism and quantum physics. Rather, it is to take you on a journey where these two disciplines, seemingly worlds apart, reveal startling parallels about the universe. A journey that leads to an understanding that everything in the cosmos, from the smallest particle to the grandest galaxies, is interdependent, interconnected, and forever in flux. This is a reality not of fixed separations, but of seamless connections that stretch across time, space, and consciousness itself. It is said that Buddha's last words were, "Be a light unto yourself." In many ways, quantum physics is saying the same thing, that the universe is not some distant, impersonal entity, but something we are intrinsically connected to. As we dig deeper into the world of quantum mechanics and Buddhist thought, we will begin to uncover a vision of reality that is more dynamic, fluid, and profoundly connected than we ever imagined. Both the ancient wisdom of Buddhism and the modern discoveries of quantum physics invite us to challenge everything we think we know about ourselves and the world. And just as a seed grows into a tree, so too does this exploration take root, asking us to reconsider how we see ourselves, others, and the very fabric of existence. We begin with a simple question: what is reality? From a conventional perspective, reality appears solid, fixed, and independent of our perceptions. However, as the ancient teachings of Buddhism and the insights of quantum physics reveal, this is far from the whole truth. At the heart of Buddhist philosophy is the concept of emptiness, or Shunyata, which suggests that nothing in the universe has a fixed, independent existence. Everything arises due to the conditions that give it form, and when those conditions change, so does its nature. This is not a nihilistic view. Rather, it is an invitation to see the world for what it truly is: fluid, ever-changing, and interconnected. In parallel, quantum physics has revealed that reality is not as stable and predictable as we once thought. At the quantum level, particles exist in multiple states at once, their behavior governed not by fixed laws, but by probabilities. The very act of observing these particles causes them to collapse into a specific state, suggesting that reality itself is, in some sense, shaped by our perception. In this way, both Buddhism and quantum physics challenge the conventional idea of a separate, independent reality. Instead, they point us towards a deeper understanding, that everything in the universe is interconnected, constantly changing, and deeply influenced by the observer. Imagine walking into a dark room and lighting a single candle. At first, the room may appear completely dark, but the light from the candle gradually reveals objects scattered about. The more light you shine, the more you see. This is how both Buddhism and quantum physics suggest we can understand the world. Not by looking at objects as isolated entities, but by observing how they are related and interconnected. The key to this understanding is the realization that we are not separate from what we observe. In the Buddhist view, this interconnectedness is revealed through the concept of dependent origination, that everything exists because of something else. Similarly, quantum physics shows us that particles and waves are interconnected, not as isolated objects, but as parts of a larger whole. By adopting this view, we begin to see that the universe is not an object to be understood from the outside, but a dynamic process in which we, as observers, play an integral role. Just as a candle's flame cannot exist without the fuel to burn, our perception of reality cannot exist without our mind to shape it. As we explore the intersections between Buddhism and quantum physics, we will delve into concepts like emptiness, interdependence, and impermanence, and see how they relate to quantum principles such as wave-particle duality, the observer effect, and quantum entanglement. Along the way, we will encounter stories, metaphors, and teachings that illuminate these ideas, not as abstract theories, but as lived experiences. You are invited to open your mind to a new vision of reality, one that is not limited by the boundaries of the physical world, but that stretches beyond space and time, inviting you into a deeper understanding of who you are and your place in the universe. As we journey through the pages ahead, we will seek not only to understand the mysteries of existence, but to live them with a sense of wonder, humility, and compassion. The grand illusion, why reality is not what it seems. Imagine sitting quietly by the side of a river, watching the water flow. On the surface, the water appears calm, unchanging, moving steadily from one end to the other. But what if we could peer below that surface? What if, instead of a single, flowing stream, we saw countless eddies, whirlpools, and the chaotic interactions of unseen forces? This deeper understanding would reveal a reality far more complex than the simple picture presented by the surface of the water. In a similar way, both Buddhism and quantum physics show us that what we experience as solid, predictable, and real is just a superficial layer of a far more intricate and dynamic universe. We have been taught from an early age to accept the world around us as it appears, fixed, tangible, and independent. The chair you sit on, the clothes you wear, the very body that you inhabit, all of these seem to exist as solid, separate entities. But what if that was an illusion? Both Buddhist philosophy and quantum mechanics invite us to take a closer look, to peer beneath the surface and see that everything is, in fact, deeply interconnected and in constant flux. The apparent solidity of our world is just the surface reality. Beneath that surface lies a profound web of interconnectedness and constant change. In Buddhism, this is encapsulated in the concept of Shunyata, or emptiness. Far from suggesting that reality is empty or meaningless, the Buddhist view of emptiness reveals that all things are empty of inherent, independent existence. Everything, from the largest galaxy to the smallest particle, exists because of causes and conditions, not because it has some fixed, eternal essence. The world we see is not what it seems. It is a constantly shifting play of interdependent phenomena, all arising in relationship to one another. Similarly, quantum physics has made a similar discovery. At the quantum level, particles do not behave in predictable, fixed ways. Instead, they exist in a state of probability, a cloud of potentialities that only becomes a defined particle when observed. In essence, the act of observation shapes the reality we experience. Just as the Buddhist view of emptiness shows that nothing exists independently, quantum physics reveals that particles and waves only appear when observed. This brings us to the first key insight shared between Buddhism and quantum physics. Reality is not as solid, separate, or predictable as it appears. What we see with our eyes is just a small fragment of a much larger, more fluid reality. The Buddhist View. Emptiness is form, form is emptiness. Buddhism's concept of Shunyata, or emptiness, is often misunderstood. To the untrained mind, emptiness might seem to imply that nothing exists. But in truth, emptiness is not about nothingness. Rather, it's a profound insight into the nature of existence itself. The Buddha taught that all phenomena arise due to causes and conditions, and that nothing has an independent, self-sustaining existence. This is the core of dependent origination, the idea that everything exists in relation to everything else. A simple object like a chair seems to be solid and separate from the world. But if we look closer, we see that it is composed of countless interdependent factors. The wood from a tree, the craftsmanship of the carpenter, the sunlight and rain that nourished the tree, and even the tools used to shape it. The chair is not an isolated object. It is the result of countless interconnected conditions. In Buddhist thought, everything is like this, dependent upon conditions for its existence. And because nothing has an intrinsic, independent existence, everything is impermanent. This is the heart of the Buddha's teaching on impermanence, that everything is constantly changing, flowing, and transforming. Nothing remains static. The chair, which appears solid and unchanging, is in fact constantly transforming at the molecular and atomic level, even though we cannot see it. But this insight is not just philosophical. It has profound practical implications. In our everyday lives, we become attached to things, believing them to be permanent and fixed. We cling to relationships, possessions, and even ideas, forgetting that they too are impermanent, constantly changing. This attachment leads to suffering, because we resist the natural flow of life and try to hold on to things that are, by their nature, fleeting. The Buddha's teaching on emptiness is an invitation to let go of this attachment, to recognize that there is nothing in the world that we can cling to for permanence. When we understand this, we can begin to experience the freedom that comes from letting go of our expectations and attachments. This understanding is not just intellectual, it's something that must be realized through direct experience. And the way to experience this understanding is through mindfulness and meditation. The quantum perspective: nothing exists alone. In a similar way, quantum physics has revealed that the world is not composed of separate, independent objects, but is instead a vast network of interdependent particles. At the quantum level, particles do not exist in fixed, independent states. Instead, they exist in a state of probability, existing in multiple potential states simultaneously until they are observed. This phenomenon is known as wave-particle duality. It's one of the most puzzling and fascinating discoveries of quantum physics. Light, for example, can behave both as a wave, spreading out across space, and as a particle localized in space and time. This duality challenges our classical understanding of matter, which tells us that something must either be a wave or a particle, but never both. Wave-particle duality is a powerful metaphor for the Buddhist view of existence. Just as light is not fixed as a wave or a particle, phenomena in the world are not fixed entities. Instead, they are dynamic processes, constantly shifting, changing, and interconnected. What we experience as solid and unchanging is, in fact, a temporary configuration of interconnected forces, arising due to conditions. But the parallels go even deeper. Quantum mechanics introduces the concept of entanglement, a phenomenon where two particles, once connected, remain linked even if they are separated by vast distances. When one particle is affected, the other responds instantaneously, regardless of the distance between them. This suggests a profound interconnectedness between particles, a kind of cosmic web that binds everything together. In Buddhism, this interdependence is captured in the teaching of dependent origination. The Buddha taught that all things arise in dependence on other factors. Nothing exists independently or in isolation. The world is a vast, interconnected web of causes and conditions, and everything is influenced by everything else. Just as quantum physics shows that particles are entangled across vast distances, Buddhist thought reveals that all beings, all phenomena, are interconnected. There is no separation between the self and the other. Everything is part of the same web of existence. The illusion of the self. Who are you really? When we look at ourselves in the mirror, we often see a person with distinct characteristics, a name, and a past. This self-image is deeply ingrained in our consciousness, and we identify with it so strongly that we believe it to be the very core of who we are. But is this self as fixed and permanent as we think? Buddhism teaches us that the self is, in fact, an illusion. The Buddha's doctrine of anatta, the notion of no self, reveals that what we call the self is not a solid, unchanging entity, but a collection of ever-changing processes. These processes are known as the five aggregates, skandhas: form, sensation, perception, mental formations, and consciousness. Together, they create the illusion of a unified self, but in reality, there is no permanent, independent essence behind them. Instead, these aggregates are impermanent, interconnected, and ever-changing. This teaching on no self is one of the most challenging and profound insights of Buddhism. It invites us to question our deepest assumptions about who we are. We cling to the idea of a permanent self because it provides us with a sense of identity and continuity. But this attachment to a fixed sense of self is the root of much suffering. In meditation, we can observe how our sense of self arises and dissolves. Thoughts, emotions, and physical sensations come and go, yet the feeling of being a separate, independent I persists. But through mindful observation, we can begin to see that this I is merely a collection of fleeting thoughts, feelings, and experiences, a mental construct that has no inherent existence. Quantum physics reveals a similar truth about the nature of identity. At the quantum level, particles do not have fixed, independent identities. They exist as potentialities, constantly shifting and evolving based on the conditions they are subjected to. In a sense, the very concept of a separate, independent identity becomes meaningless when we look at the quantum world. Just as particles are interconnected and in a state of constant flux, so too are we, as human beings, part of an ever-changing web of interconnected processes. By understanding the illusion of the self, both in the context of Buddhism and quantum physics, we can begin to let go of the attachment to a fixed identity. This understanding frees us from the suffering caused by clinging to the idea of a permanent self, and opens us to a deeper sense of interconnectedness with all of existence. The observer creates the observed. One of the most mind-boggling discoveries of quantum physics is the observer effect. This principle suggests that the act of observation plays a fundamental role in shaping the state of a quantum system. In other words, the very presence of an observer, a conscious being, causes the collapse of the quantum wave function, transforming a potential state into a definite one. At first glance, this may seem utterly paradoxical. How can the observer have such a profound influence on the nature of reality? In the classical view of the world, the universe exists independently of our perception of it. Objects and events unfold regardless of whether we observe them or not. But in the quantum realm, observation itself becomes an active participant in the creation of reality. This principle echoes a core teaching in Buddhism. The mind is not a passive receiver of external reality, but an active participant in the construction of that reality. In Buddhist thought, perception is not something that happens to us. It is something that we create. The Buddha taught that our experience of the world is shaped by our mental formations, past experiences, and underlying tendencies. In meditation, we begin to see how our thoughts and perceptions arise and dissolve based on these internal conditions. The observer effect in quantum physics and the Buddhist concept of perception as an active process both reveal that our experience of the world is not a simple reflection of an external reality, but a complex interaction between the observer, the mind, and the observed, the world. This understanding invites us to take responsibility for our perceptions and to cultivate mindfulness in how we see and interpret the world. If the observer has the power to shape the observed, then the way we choose to observe the world can profoundly influence our experience. This insight is both liberating and empowering. It suggests that we are not passive victims of external circumstances, but active participants in the creation of our reality. Bridging the gap, a conversation between science and silence. Imagine for a moment that you are sitting with a scientist, perhaps someone like Albert Einstein, who has just presented his latest theory of the universe. You listen intently, fascinated by the complexity of his ideas, but you notice something else. The scientist's words are not the only form of wisdom in the room. There is also a deeper silence, a stillness that pervades the air, a wisdom that comes not from words but from direct experience. This silence is not the absence of sound, but a space in which the mind is quiet enough to perceive the world as it truly is. It is the space in which meditation takes place, where we let go of our mental chatter and experience the world as it is, without the filter of concepts and judgments. And it is within this silence that we begin to see the deep interconnectedness of all things. The dialogue between science and silence is not one of opposition, but of complementarity. While science provides us with a conceptual framework for understanding the universe, silence offers us the direct experience of that understanding. Both are necessary for a complete understanding of reality. In Buddhism, silence is not seen as something passive or empty, but as a profound presence. It is the space in which insight arises. Similarly, quantum physics invites us to observe the silence of the quantum field, where particles emerge from a state of pure potential. This potential is the silence from which everything arises, just as the Buddha taught that all phenomena arise from emptiness. This dialogue between science and silence is a reminder that our understanding of the universe is not solely intellectual but experiential. True wisdom comes when we can integrate both knowledge and direct experience, when we can bridge the gap between the mind that knows and the silence that understands. Living the insight, how this changes everything. So far, we've explored the deep, abstract concepts of emptiness, interdependence, and the fluid nature of reality as revealed by both Buddhism and quantum physics. But what does this understanding mean for our everyday lives? How can we integrate these profound insights into our daily interactions, our relationships, and the way we approach our work and our health? The core insight that emerges from both Buddhism and quantum physics is the realization that everything is interconnected and impermanent. The belief in a fixed, independent self is an illusion, and as such, our attachment to things, people, and ideas is the root cause of suffering. By understanding the interconnectedness of all things, we begin to let go of the need to control and cling to the world around us. This is where the practice of mindfulness and meditation comes in. In Buddhism, mindfulness is the practice of bringing our awareness to the present moment, noticing our thoughts, feelings, and sensations without clinging to them. By observing the transient nature of our thoughts and experiences, we can begin to loosen our attachment to them. This practice helps us recognize that nothing is permanent and that everything is subject to change. Similarly, in quantum physics, we learn that nothing is fixed, and everything exists in a state of potential until it is observed. Just as particles exist in a superposition of states, our lives are filled with infinite possibilities. The act of observation, or, in the case of Buddhism, the act of mindfulness, shapes the reality we experience. When we approach life with mindfulness, we are actively shaping our experience, letting go of attachments, and embracing the impermanence of all things. Living with this understanding can transform the way we interact with the world. We no longer need to hold on to rigid ideas about ourselves or others. We can approach relationships with greater compassion, understanding that people, like everything else, are in a constant state of change. We can embrace the uncertainties of life, knowing that we are part of a vast, interconnected web, and that our actions ripple through this web, influencing everything around us. This insight also has profound implications for how we approach our work and our health. In the realm of health, for example, understanding the impermanent nature of the body can help us let go of the fear of aging and illness. We can approach the challenges of growing older with grace and acceptance, understanding that change is a natural part of life. In our work, recognizing the interconnectedness of all things encourages us to approach our tasks with a sense of responsibility, knowing that every action we take affects the larger whole. Embracing uncertainty with grace. One of the greatest sources of stress in our lives comes from our desire for certainty. We want to know the outcome of every decision, control every situation, and avoid the unpredictable nature of life. But as both Buddhism and quantum physics show us, certainty is an illusion. The universe is inherently uncertain, and nothing in life is guaranteed. Quantum physics reveals that at the quantum level, everything exists in a state of probability. The outcome of an event is not fixed until it is observed, and even then, it is subject to the uncertainty inherent in the system. This uncertainty is not a limitation of our measurement tools, but an intrinsic feature of the universe. In fact, the very concept of certainty is irrelevant at the quantum level. In Buddhism, the impermanence of all things teaches us that nothing is fixed. Our lives are constantly changing, and we have no control over the flow of time. By clinging to the illusion of control, we create suffering for ourselves. The wisdom of Buddhism encourages us to let go of our attachment to certainty and embrace the uncertainty of life. Embracing uncertainty does not mean giving up on our goals or living aimlessly. Rather, it means accepting that we cannot control everything and being open to the flow of life. By letting go of the need for certainty, we can approach each moment with greater freedom and ease. We can meet the challenges of life with grace, knowing that they are temporary and ever-changing. This wisdom allows us to live more fully in the present moment, without the constant anxiety of worrying about the future or regretting the past. It encourages us to embrace life as it is, rather than trying to force it to conform to our expectations. When we let go of the need for certainty, we make space for greater peace, joy, and fulfillment. Epilogue, a universe that loves you through interconnection. As we reach the end of this exploration, we are left with a profound realization. Everything in the universe is interconnected. From the smallest particle to the greatest star, everything is linked in an intricate web of relationships. The very fabric of existence is a dynamic process, constantly shifting, evolving, and interrelating. There is no separation between the self and the other, between the observer and the observed. We are all part of this vast, interconnected web. This understanding is not just intellectual, but deeply transformative. It invites us to see the world and our place in it in a new way. We are not isolated individuals, separate from the world around us. We are interconnected with every being, every phenomenon, every particle in the universe. Our thoughts, actions, and choices have an impact on the world, and we are affected by the actions of others. In Buddhism, this understanding of interconnectedness gives rise to compassion. When we realize that all beings are interconnected, we cannot help but feel a deep sense of empathy and care for others. We recognize that the suffering of others is our suffering, and their joy is our joy. This realization leads to the cultivation of kindness, compassion, and wisdom. Similarly, quantum physics reveals that everything is interconnected, and our actions affect the world in ways that we may not fully understand. The concept of entanglement teaches us that we are all part of the same cosmic web, and that our actions reverberate throughout the universe. The integration of these two perspectives, the spiritual wisdom of Buddhism and the scientific insights of quantum physics, invites us to live with greater awareness, compassion, and responsibility. We are not separate from the world, we are part of it. And as we awaken to this truth, we can live our lives with a sense of purpose, knowing that our thoughts, actions, and choices matter. As you move forward in your own life, remember that you are part of a vast, interconnected universe. You are not alone. Your presence in the world is a gift, and you have the power to shape the reality you experience. By embracing the wisdom of both Buddhism and quantum physics, you can live a life that is full of compassion, awareness, and love. The future of science and spirituality. As we continue our journey through life, we stand at the threshold of an exciting new era of exploration and understanding. The discoveries of quantum physics and the teachings of Buddhism are not isolated from one another. Rather, they are two complementary pathways that offer profound insights into the nature of reality. In the realm of science, quantum physics continues to push the boundaries of what we know about the universe. It invites us to question everything we thought we understood about space, time, and matter. As scientists delve deeper into the mysteries of the quantum world, they uncover a reality that is far more complex and interconnected than anything we could have imagined. It is a universe that is not static, but alive with possibility, where uncertainty reigns, and where everything is in a constant state of flux. On the other hand, Buddhism has been offering a similar understanding of reality for over 2 millennia. Through its teachings on emptiness, interdependence, and impermanence, Buddhism provides a framework for understanding the nature of the self and the world. It shows us that nothing is fixed, nothing is separate, and that everything is interconnected in a vast web of causes and conditions. As science continues to uncover the mysteries of the quantum world, and as we deepen our understanding of the Buddhist path, we find that these two realms of knowledge are not contradictory, but are, in fact, converging. The insights of quantum physics and the wisdom of Buddhism both point to the same truth. Reality is fluid, interconnected, and shaped by observation. Together, they offer us a richer, more holistic understanding of existence. Quantum physics opens the door to the mysteries of the physical world, while Buddhism invites us to explore the inner dimensions of consciousness and the mind. In combining these two perspectives, we are invited to see the world in a new light, one that is filled with possibility, wonder, and profound interconnectedness. As humanity moves forward into the future, the integration of science and spirituality will likely play a crucial role in shaping our understanding of the universe and our place within it. It will inspire us to approach life with greater humility, curiosity, and compassion. Whether through scientific discovery or spiritual practice, we are all on a journey of awakening to the interconnectedness of all things. As we reach the end of this exploration, we are left with a simple but powerful message. The universe is far more mysterious than we ever imagined. But this mystery is not something to be feared. It is something to be embraced. Both quantum physics and Buddhism teach us that reality is not fixed and certain. It is ever-changing, dynamic, and filled with potential. Our perceptions shape the world we experience, and our understanding of reality is always provisional. The universe, both within and without, is a vast, interconnected web of causes and conditions, and our place within it is not separate, but deeply intertwined with all of existence. This realization invites us to live with greater humility and openness, to approach life with curiosity rather than fear, and to embrace the uncertainties of the world with grace. By doing so, we open ourselves to a deeper understanding of ourselves and the world, one that is full of potential, wonder, and love. The practice of mindfulness, compassion, and wisdom is not just a spiritual path, but a way of life. It is a way of living with awareness and intentionality, knowing that our actions have consequences, and that we are all part of a larger whole. As we deepen our understanding of the interconnectedness of all things, we are called to live more harmoniously with the world, to cultivate compassion for all beings, and to recognize that the universe itself is a reflection of the love and interconnectedness that exists within us all. In the end, the journey of discovery is not just about understanding the world around us. It is about understanding the world within us. It is about awakening to the profound wisdom that exists in both the scientific exploration of the universe and the spiritual exploration of the mind. And it is about living with that wisdom, embracing the mystery of life with an open heart, and walking the path with compassion, kindness, and love. As you reflect on this journey, remember that the universe is not just something out there to be understood. It is also within you, in every thought, every feeling, every breath you take. The wisdom of quantum physics and Buddhism reminds us that everything is interconnected. Your mind, your actions, and your consciousness shape the reality you experience, and this reality is a living, breathing reflection of the interconnectedness of all things. The silence between the words, the spaces between the particles, and the moments of stillness in your life are as profound as the knowledge you seek. These silences are not empty, they are full of potential. They are the spaces in which we find ourselves, where we find peace, and where we connect with the deeper truths of the universe. May you walk this path with an open heart, embracing the mystery, the uncertainty, and the beauty of life. May you live with the awareness that you are part of a vast, interconnected universe, and that your thoughts, your actions, and your love ripple through the cosmos in ways you may never fully understand. But rest assured, they are felt, they are seen, and they are part of the grand, beautiful web of existence. Thank you for taking this journey with me. May you continue to explore, to question, and to live with compassion and wisdom as you navigate the mysteries of life and the universe.